You're watching ClueCon Weekly, the FreeSWITCH community's official web show. Tune in every week for updates in the FreeSWITCH project, interesting presentations, and interact with members of the FreeSWITCH community. ClueCon Weekly is brought to you by FreeSWITCH Solutions, the officially endorsed consulting firm of the FreeSWITCH project. FreeSWITCH Solutions solves problems so you can focus on your business. Visit FreeSWITCH.com for more information. The ClueCon WebRTC and Telephony Developers Conference. ClueCon is held every August in the Windy City, Chicago, Illinois. Meet the developers of all your favorite open source telephony projects, make the connections you need to meet your business goals, and see the latest and greatest technology in WebRTC and telephony. Visit ClueCon.com for more details.
All right, guys. Welcome to ClueCon Weekly. Today is July 15th, and we'll have Randall Schwartz, Floss Weekly on Twit TV, and author of many Pearl books, joining us here shortly. Before we get to that, we've got a few news and announcements. Hotels, if you're going to ClueCon, you need to get, and you have not got your reservation for the hotel yet, you need to get. Today is the last day that we can guarantee reservation. On that, after today, there'll be Mr. West will be yelling at you because there's a lot of work, extra work, to get those reservations in. So you guys definitely want to visit ClueCon.com, hit the little reservation link, and get those done as soon as possible. Also, Brian, is there anything else you want to add today?
Yes, and we're going to extend our current discount ClueCon ticket price until Friday the 17th in honor of Prime Day. I don't know if you guys are paying attention. That's been an interesting thing this week. So yeah, we're going to extend that. If you have problems, do not hesitate to call me. I'll take care of anything I can for you, but please get your hotel reservation in today if at all possible, because after the day, I can't guarantee room rate or availability. So I like to get that taken care of today if possible. And that's pretty much it, Mr. Rice.
All right, cool. So, yeah, for ClueCon, don't forget to follow on Twitter at ClueCon, and you can get all the schedule updates and any last-minute updates that you want for there. Don't forget ClueCon Friday after ClueCon. There at the hotel. There's still a few seats left in that, so if you want to get those, you want to get registered for that as quickly as possible because those are going fast. So, anyway, Kathleen, are you with us today?
I am.
How are you doing, young lady?
I'm doing pretty good.
Guess you want to give us an update about the week in review?
I do. It's going really well. This week we had 54 commits and a lot of great pull requests and getting approved and sort of streamlining the process. So, if you've got something that you want to add to FreeSWITCH or an improvement that you think would be, beneficial, please submit a pull request. We'll review it. We'll see what we can do about getting it applied. And yeah, it's looking great.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And this week, we're going to keep moving right along here. We have Randall Schwartz joining us. If you Amazon.com and punch in Randall's name there on the search box, you'll get about 11 billion results for Pearl books. Randall's one of the guys that's been writing those books and has been working with a very long time, and more recently he's also host on twit.tv of Floss Weekly. So I've known Randall for many years. I met him back during the .com boom, in New York City, and he's still working in the today. Randall, how are you doing? Uh-oh.
Doing good. I'm doing good, but a little bit bandwidth challenge today, so some of your
Uh-oh.
back.
And,
speaking
of bandwidth challenged.
Yeah, I was just being Floss Weekly earlier this morning, and then it was like the downstream was horrible, but the upstream was perfect. I don't understand why. So hopefully this won't be as bad.
Well, Mr. Rice is keenly aware of bandwidth challenges.
Okay. Yeah, so thanks for having me on the show, or being partially on the show, I guess. Parts of me are on.
Oh, no. It's great to have you here, Randall. So, what have you been working on lately? I know you've written several Pearl books. Are you working on any new books lately?
I'm working on getting really smart about programming language and getting on the ground floor there the same way I got in Perl. Because I don't think there's enough good tutorial books on Dart and not enough good training set up for Dart. And I think I've got skills and now everything's frozen for me. No return.
Oh, there you go. You're back now. Yeah, so you're going to be writing a Dart book? Uh-oh.
I can't. Oh, this is not working. This is not working. I'm very happy to be on the show, but I guess Comcast is not happy to have me on the show.
You never can tell with those guys.
You can turn off the video send. That helped when we were doing Floss Weekly.
Actually, what you can do is if you scroll up to the top of the page there's a toggle video mute. You can just that'll reduce your upstream.
No. Is there any way to turn off the video screen?
Yeah, if you hang up and then go into device settings, you can uncheck use video and call back in. There's no way to do that on the fly.
Okay, well, that's a feature request then, I guess. Okay, let me I'll be right back.
And I'll be sure to bring up the his non-functional IPv6 because we do have the guy from Comcast that is responsible for 6 deployments in Comcast coming to ClueCon to speak to all of the developers during the roundtable. We have an hour and a half scheduled. I don't know if it'll go that long, but we're going to be discussing all kinds of options and how V6 is known. So if you don't have V6 deployed or you don't have a game plan for deployment, now is the time to.
And here we go. I think you got.
There he comes back. He'll be here in just a second.
Yep.
Okay, I'm back.
There we go.
All right. What I did is I just dropped the bandwidth way down to like 500 megabits or something because I think it'll probably fit that. So you'll get really choppy video, but at least it'll work.
Yes, that's always a plus.
Yes, and actually, it's looking good coming your way too. No, not yet. Of course, I say that not having listened to any sentences yet. And now it probably froze.
No, actually, you're sitting there looking good to us.
Yeah,
all right, let's try it anyway. Let's try it anyway.
All right, so we were talking about you writing a Dart book.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, as I said, it's the downstream for some reason. It's just been horrible all morning. So,
Did you see the choice that said use dedicated remote encoder? If you pick that one, so otherwise you're getting the same bandwidth that everyone else is. But if you use the dedicated one, you can use the smaller amount.
Okay.
You might have to call back one more time.
Let me try it one more time then. Let me see. I'll sit it down as far as I can.
Hey, Calvin.
Hi, Brian.
So you guys started your V6 implementation in Big Blue Button yet?
I think it's actually mostly gonna work at this point. It looks like because most of it's just web server stuff and through Nginx, which already supports V6 pretty well.
Awesome.
Is that a ping pong table?
Yeah, yes, that is a ping pong table behind me as our conference table.
Sure, it does.
That's an excuse to play in the office, right?
It certainly is.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Randall needs to be unmuted.
We got him. There he is. You're back.
All right, let's try that again.
Here we go. Hi.
Hi, there we go.
Am I good? All right. All right. I got it down to 250K and dedicated things, so hopefully that's going to work this time.
That is a lot better. Your video is not as clear, but that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Maybe that's the way I look at real life. It could be like
well, I had talked while you were gone that I will bring up your IPv because the gentleman at Comcast that is responsible for that will be at ClueCon.
Yeah.
Speaking, so I will be sure to mention the
only thing you need to do is to have them get rid of their router, and I don't know how to do that without spending 4 hours on the phone with Comcast.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I need to go back to a bridge, not a router, or just to a dedicated modem. That worked just fine for 4 years for my IPv6 tunnel. So yeah.
Do you have a residential connection or is it a business connection?
It's residential.
Yeah.
But yeah, they force these new routers for drive-bys, so it's kind of crazy. That's using up my bandwidth, and that's what's happening right now.
Right, let's get back on topic. We were discussing you're writing a Dart book.
Yep, and probably a Dart course, Dart trainings, and I was just week down in Porto Alegre, Brazil. 5,000 attendees. It's a huge conference, and I pitched a Dart talk, so I'd force myself to write one. So I wrote it just in the nick of time, and it was well presented. If you go to a brief introduction to Dart, both the video and the slide deck, and it's also on slideshare.net. If you look for that title, you'll probably find it.
Cool. So I think the last time I actually saw you in person, Randall, you were doing a bunch of different training on some of the geek cruises. Are you still doing that sort of thing?
Still doing the cruises, but they've moved on from having any dedicated technology cruises, so I'm no longer doing that. The last time I gave a talk on one of the cruises was when we were partnered with Macworld Magazine, and Macworld Magazine is no longer there, so hard to have them as a partner when they're no longer existing. So the cruises have been primarily Scientific American, Sky and Telescope. Like with Sky and Telescope, we're actually going down to see the total solar eclipse down in Indonesia next March. That'll be really awesome. See it right from the ship. Hopefully, as long as there's not clouds. Go all that way to Singapore and not be able to see the eclipse. But yeah, in fact, I'm going on my 74th cruise, I think it is, coming up in just a few weeks. Going out of London, going over to Iceland, and over to Norway, and hitting a couple of the channel. And that'll be fun. That'll be a Scientific American cruise with a lot of really great content. It's a heck of a long cruise. So,
wow.
But it's fun. It's good stuff.
That's cool. So I know Anthony and Mike were visiting you on Floss Weekly about 2 weeks ago, and one of the questions that you asked them as they were parting company is scripting language. And Tony over there, I know, is a huge Perl fan. And when he said that, that kind of got you a little excited there. You want to kind of tell us a little bit about you and some of the things in Perl that you've done? You already mentioned that you got involved very early on.
Yeah, I downloaded Perl 1 when it went by on the old Usenet. And that's back when you had to download a 60-part Sharchive and glue it all together. It actually works occasionally. But I saw that go by. I didn't do much with it. But when Perl 2 came along, it was really a replacement language for me. So I've been doing a lot of things with Shell and SED and awk and stuff like that, even Emacs Lisp. Some of my code's actually in every copy of GNU Emacs, the pretty printer thing that turns an S expression into a nice indented thing. I wrote that, and Richard Stallman called it brilliant, so it went into part of the code. But Perl 2 actually got me rewriting everything in Perl. And then when Perl 3 came along, it was a much more complex language. It went from 20 pages to 60 pages in the man page, and or man pages, I guess would be. No, yeah, what was back then? And I got involved with writing tutorial information about it. And then I ended up writing the Camel book as a result. And then the Llama book came out of that because I started teaching it. And, the rest is history. I've just been doing lots and lots of the Perl community. I also wrote 2 magazine articles on Perl. So that gives me about, I think when I last computed, it was 20 million bylines in hard copy, which is really hard to get up to that number with anything these days, unless you're like the guys that writes fiction, but I was writing nonfiction. So, yeah, that makes me the in the Perl community, though, in terms of number of bylines out there. And I've been tracking the Perl 6 effort. I'm starting to be excited by it. I may actually be writing the equivalent of learning Perl for Perl 6, although that's just pretend you didn't hear that because it isn't all settled yet. But the though is, where am I going to find the 20? Well, you see, I can justify writing the llama book and the alpaca book because it was the training book for my trainings. And that was back during the dot-com boom when you had, 20 people in the same room for the same week wanting to start at one place, end up at that same place, or at similar places, right? And that's not going to be happening for Perl 6. I think people are going to be more self-educated in Perl 6 or educated with books, but you can't justify spending nights and weekends for a year working on a book when you're not going to get the kind of returns we were getting on doing actual on-site trainings. I mean, I was selling those trainings at $22,000 for a week. And so that completely blew out of the water any non-money I was making from the royalties the books did. And so depending on how many co-authors you have and how much time you had to spend on nights and weekends, it's minimum wage. It's less than minimum wage. I could make more money flipping burgers than I could writing for publishers like O'Reilly. That's not to say don't do it, but I already have my credentials now. I don't need to write another book. I'm already well established in the community. So I'd either have to look at a Perl 6 Learning Perl book as a labor of love, and I've got plenty of other labors of love that I want to do instead, or I'd have to find a way to turn it into training somehow, maybe remote learning or something. I don't know, figure something out.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because, I mean, we know a little bit about writing books for projects, as we're got another edition of the FreeSWITCH book and another edition of our FreeSWITCH cookbook in the works right now, and that's a lot of effort for a little return, other than getting hard documentation out there in people's hands. So it's definitely, and the guys that work on that heavily do put a lot of time into that sort of thing. So if you want to check out some of Randall's books, I know, Randall, where do you prefer to send folks to look for your books?
Well, yeah, O'Reilly's website's fine. They're all there. I used to have what do you call it, like links, like Amazon links, and I was actually making more money from the Amazon link than I was making from the actual royalties, which is really kind of bizarre. But I've let that sort of fall down now, so I don't know if there's even any place that does that anymore.
Yeah. So yeah, check them out on O'Reilly. There's stuff there, and I know more recently, in the global scheme of things, you've been working on Floss Weekly. From a technology standpoint, how does that really work for you guys?
You mean how do we tape the show?
Yes.
Okay, so what we have is there's a dedicated facility in Petaluma, California that Leo Laporte owns and runs, and we have a switcher guy who's running, I believe it's that video switching software that they keep mentioning all the time on the show and I never remember. Anyway, so he's got basically 4 of these boxes that are Windows boxes with frame buffers and setting up capturing Skype. So we do a video Skype call to each of the individual people on the show, and then he switches it down with a video switcher, and then also has audio management stuff there. We tape the show live to tape, so we try to go through without any kind of edits or anything, although we do occasionally flub up, and we don't always start right at 8 o'clock, so there's always a little bit of work to do. But then it goes into their editing bay, and then usually within a couple of hours, they've uploaded it to the CDN and all that stuff. So it needs a little bit of assembly, some assembly after the show is taped, and their editors do that. Now they're paid by Twit, so I'm not paid by Twit. I'm just the host. I call myself the showrunner because that was the closest name I found when I was looking through titles. Because I'm in charge of everything really now. Bringing the co-hosts together, bringing the guests together, coordinating all that. We have a Google spreadsheet that I work off of that has all the current guests and all the potential future guests that we've been informed of so far. I do crowdsource the guests, though, and that really solved the problems 5 or 6 years ago when I was starting to run out of people I could talk to. I tell my audience at the end of every show, hey, you want to have a project on this show? You get the project leader or community coordinator to email me. Here's my email address. And by the time they do that, they're already primed on what they like about the show, and then people want to come on the show. It's not like me calling and doing cold calling. You really have been a great show. Instead, it's one of the audience helping out with that. So it's
yeah, that is very cool. Yeah, that's the fun part of what I have to do around here is lining up guests all the time, and that can be very fun. Well, not so much so. But, that's always a good thing. So I'm going to I'm going to open the floor a little bit and see if there's anybody else. I know Tony might want to talk to you, ask you a few questions, maybe Brian, or anybody else. Hit 0 and ask away. Randall's a super cool guy. Like I said, I met him back during the .com boom through a friend of mine in NYC. Had dinner one night, if you remember Adam Prado.
Of course, Adam, yeah.
Yeah, so we met long time ago. We'll tell that story later, though.
Yeah, yes.
Anybody have any questions for Randall?
I have a question.
Well,
Can you
ask
guys
away,
hear me?
Mr. West.
Yeah. Okay. So, what was your first computer? How did you get started?
Computer would have been an ASR 33 teletype attached into a dial-up 100 to the school's central computer. So I taught myself BASIC, and I taught myself how to type in uppercase only very slowly, and I did that for a number of years. When I was in junior high, my dad got me access to this thing because it was present in the high school's place, and I had excitedly rushed in to see my dad one day in his workshop, telling him that I really wanted to learn how to program. This is what I want to do. He had given me a book on Focal, the PDP-8 scientific language, and I actually read the whole book, and I wrote down a program, having entered it. Still haven't entered it to this day. I got to find a Focal simulator and go find that piece of paper again because it's historic. And then, so I came home the next week, and I found this book on Timeshare Basics sitting there. And Mom told me, Dad's still out on a service call, and wanted to know what I thought of that book. And so I read through it. I went, "This is really cool." And Dad says, "Well, keep your Saturday open because we're going to go see the thing that actually runs this." And I wrote on a program that was about 100 lines long on a piece of paper. It says, press 1 to add, press 2 to subtract, press 3 to multiply, press 4 to divide. So basically treating it as a 4-function calculator. And I put this all down. And so we got there Saturday. The computer teacher for the high school was there. And he said, well, let's take the book and start here on the first page. And I go, "Can I just type this program in? Can I just see if that runs?" It ran perfectly. My very first program on the computer had no bugs. It's been downhill ever since. So, but that's how I got started. And then I sat in this little teeny tiny room when I was in high school. This ASR 33 was, and spent every day before first period, every break, every lunchtime, and 2 hours after school every day. I bought books on Timeshare Basic, and I typed in a lot of the programs from that, and got really, really good at really, really ugly BASIC. And then this is around the time of the microcomputer coming out. This is like 74, 75, right in there somewhere. And it turns out that the Atari 400 came out. So the Atari 400 was the first computer I owned, where I actually brought it home and got to play with it. And I went also, I think, through the Atari 1200 after that. And then my next computer after that was a PowerBook, because I had to write learning Perl on something, and I didn't want to have any kind of Windows machine. I've never owned a machine that ran Windows in my life. So, and I'm planning on keeping it that way. So I bought a PowerBook 140 because a Windows laptop would have been horrible, and the Spark books were like $10,000. I couldn't afford that. So that's what got me started in Macs. I've been, basically buying a brand new PowerBook, or whatever the equivalent name is, about every other year since it would be like since 1991, back in the day.
You were talking about Dart earlier. What is Dart, and why is it interesting to us?
It's interesting because we're taking back the notion of having single page written in crappy languages like JavaScript. Dart is a really nice language, really mature, has a good support, classes, generics, all sorts of really wonderful things. Interactive debuggers that work with IntelliJ and a bunch of other things, so you get code completion. It's strong but optionally typed. So you can say, your IDE can give you the methods that int can use, as opposed to just generic. And it's really, really smart about that. It's being developed by Google. They wanted something, I think the motivation was they wanted GWT, because that's how they've been doing a lot of their SPA, single-page apps. And so Dart is both a server-side and a client-side language. It transpiles into modern JavaScript, but you never have to see that JavaScript. That if you want to call like jQuery and stuff, you can do that. But basically, on server side, they've got this really wonderful VM that was done by the same people that did the V8 engine, so it's extremely fast, just-in-time compiling, that sort of stuff. And you would use that, say, in place of Node.js, or the equivalent of server-side stuff that could do file I/O and high-performance sockets, things like that. And then on the client side, you've got one browser called Dartium that has that same VM built into it. And that's how you get debugging, because you still want to have all the nice high-level stuff. And then when you want to deploy, you push one other button, and then Dart to JS runs, and now it's all in JavaScript. And it's high-efficiency JavaScript. They do tree shaking, so sometimes your payloads can be smaller than even the entire jQuery library, even for complex applications. But I like it because Google's behind it, and they're already doing a lot of internal projects with it. There's a lot of other companies already using it out there. Dart 1.0 hit an ECMA specification about 6 months ago. So it's, I think it's got legs. Google's behind it. Google's supporting it. So, I this as I got in Perl, because now server-side applications with their VM and client-side applications in ways that I had never gotten to with just jQuery and JavaScript.
That adds something to my list that I need to now go check out, because I had not heard of Dart mentioned it.
Yep. Well, like I said, go to the a brief history of Dart. No, a brief introduction to Dart. I think if you just Google and SlideShare for that, or you go to my Google Plus thread at Randall Schwartz on Google Plus. I think I announced both the video and the slide deck last week.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm on Dart.org.
Homepage for it. Yeah.
That's where I'm going to start. I'm going to check this out, because it is things I want to build some web apps and stuff. FreeSWITCH. So this would be an interesting component of that.
Yes, and they already have a port of both Angular and Polymer to it. JS is now also going to be Angular Dart. In fact, they're going to be built from the same sources coming up soon. And then the Polymer, which allows for polyfills and things like that to have really smart components, has also been ported to Dart, although they're in the process of updating that to the latest release of Polymer. So it's a little bit in flux right now, but definitely like to check it out. I mean, I want smart web apps. Gmail doesn't refresh every time you hit a button. It would be crazy. So that's the sort of thing they're looking at. The next big thing internally in Google with Dart is they're rewriting all of the AdWords management consoles. So coming up real soon, that'll all be a Dart application.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's about getting started in computers. My first computer was a TI-99-4A. So that was the first basic language that I learned at home on my own. And then my second language that I learned was Perl. So, which is by far my most favorite language, because I can quickly prototype things in it.
Oh, now you're just sucking up.
It's definitely my favorite. My third language was then JavaScript, and then Lua.
Ah, that's a good selection.
So I actually enjoy Lua.
Yeah, I learned Smalltalk in 1982. So I learned Smalltalk long before I ever learned Perl. And so when Perl 5 came out and objects got thrown in there, I was like, oh my God, hey, I can do all my Smalltalky things with it now. And back to Dart just for a second, the key developers of Dart are also big Smalltalk fans. So there's actually some resembled Smalltalk, which I really like.
Awesome. I'm definitely, that's on my list.
Okay.
Now, in relation to Dart, does Dart play well with other browsers, like jQuery, React, or any of those browsers?
You have to be careful with Dart that anything that might change the DOM has to be mapped in such a way that Dart would notice that something has changed. And that's not hard to do, and people have built things up with it, and there's sort of a pretty straightforward way of creating a component, and as part of building the component, you'll end up saying, and when this callback happens, you'll also need to also update the Dart side of the view. And this is mostly because it has these two-way bindings. So you got handlebar, whatever you want to call it. And so you just put a variable name in there. And then when that variable changes on the JavaScript side, it automatically updates the web page, which is really cool. But it needs to be told all that. It needs to be told that something changed. And so it has to be within the context of a component where it knows that there might be some DOM manipulation happening here. And therefore, when that comes back, we need to go look at our variables again and see what actually had to be updated. they do interop fine. It's just once you start playing with Dart, though, a lot of the jQuery stuff you would have been doing the hard way very quickly to write in Dart. And there's already the equivalent of the CPAN for Dart with something like 3,700 packages in it. So you might find the exact same thing just as a native Dart implementation. And then you can get around some of the jQuery interface issues.
Okay. Have you heard of people having success embedding Dart into other applications? I know Lua is a common one to be embedded, but I haven't seen any results online for embedding Dart.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the right thing playing together. I think that would be a little bit awkward. Sort of wants to have the main equivalent, and if you don't give it that, then it doesn't really start up the way it's supposed to, I guess. So yeah, I wouldn't imagine that, but I don't know there's any reason why it couldn't ultimately do that. I just don't know if I've heard of anybody that's doing that right now.
Yeah, I can tell you why William was asking you that question, because we have a number of languages, including things like JavaScript and Perl and Lua embedded into FreeSWITCH, and that makes it easy for people to script IVRs and that sort of thing, and how you're going to interact with the call. Or in this case, now that we're adding video with the video stream.
I would think it'd be more. I think it'd be more easily to do it as maybe having an API call, but I can see it's useful too to be able to have good fast responses and things like that.
Right. Right. So, anybody else have any questions for Randall today? I'm going to ask you one then, Randall. What's your favorite editor, Randall?
Emacs. Can do Emacs, of course.
Emacs. Oh, yeah. Come on. You don't use Vim?
Oh, no. There's a little bit of me in every copy of Emacs, as I said earlier. So I wrote the pretty printer in there. I also was writing large text manipulation scripts in Emacs before I discovered Perl. So yeah, it's my favorite editor. My hands know how to type Emacs things properly. And yes, I think my pinky finger here is a little bit larger than the rest. Yes, but no, it's my go-to thing. I know, yeah, it's like they'll never have inside Vim an adventure guide every copy of Emacs, or Tetris, right, or Towers of Heaven, all the good little games that are in there. Yes. But it's actually it's gotten a lot more mature in terms of usability on, say, OS 10, because once Richard Stallman got over the whole notion that we shouldn't even think about porting Emacs to OS 10, it actually got good finally. We have native Windows support and all sorts of wonderful things, and some of the stuff they're doing with for remote file editing are just really phenomenal. It just keeps getting better and better all the time, and their package manager's gotten a lot better too. So I can install things without having to go hunt down a .el file somewhere. I could just call it up in the list of packages that are available on many publicly hosted repositories. So yeah, I'm liking it.
Yeah, we're pretty much an Emacs shop. I think Mr. Rice and I go back and forth. He'll have something, since we share a script for collaborative coding and management of the infrastructure. Sometimes he'll have something open in Vim, and I'm incapable of functioning when it comes to Vim. I can't move around. It's alien to me.
Yes.
And it inversely, Ken tends to have the same thing. And the second thing about that is, people will ask me, well, what keystroke to do this? I'm like, I don't know. It's muscle memory. I couldn't tell you what I press. I just do it, and it goes. So don't. I have to go do it, and then as I'm trying to figure out, well, what are the key presses? I screw it up and can't remember it just trips me up.
If anybody ever asked me where the letter T is, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I can go right to the T with my hand. So that's the important thing, as long as I can type, and I type really, even in Perl code. So it's pretty bizarre. That's the other thing. Is like I think the cPerl mode in Emacs does a nicer job of syntax highlighting and indentation than Vim does, but that's not Vim's fault. It's just that Perl's hard to parse.
Yeah, that's speaking of typing. At what age did you learn to type? Because I learned on an electric typewriter one summer after my mother showed me the home row, which allowed me to develop some very bad typing habits.
Yes. Well, I did hunt and peck way back in I think when I got my. No, it must have been earlier than that. No, yeah, because it must have been when I started using the SR33. So I was like type in the SR33. But then, luckily, in my high school, I think during my freshman year, one of the segments in one of the classes. So I spent about 2 months, 3 months learning to type, and that really improved my speed. And it's just been, practice since then.
Yeah, I remember in my freshman year, or was it 8th grade, I think it was, I started typing, or keyboarding is what they called it, and by that time I'd already developed too many bad habits to break me of that. But I started day one doing 85 plus words a minute, so doing the ASDFJKL semicolon thing was monotonous.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So it was not fun for me. But after that, after we got into actually typing real text and real stuff, I excelled.
Yep, cool.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, anybody else have any questions for Randall? Going once, going twice. Well, Randall, I want to thank you for stopping by and joining us today. It's not often that we get to see, have a guy on here that's been, writing Perl longer than half of our users have been alive, it seems like. So, let's face it, a lot of the guys at FreeSWITCH they're younger guys. They were graduating high school 5 or 10 years ago, so they're fresh in the market still.
Yeah.
Like me, you, and Brian, these kids, but they're writing $1 million apps on the iPhone.
Yeah, well, 2 years ago, I actually did a talk at OSCON called My Half-Life with Perl, or Half My Life with Perl, depending on what version of it you saw. And I was talking about the fact that I was just 50 at that point, and Perl was just turning 25. And so I got to talk about the intertwined culture, my company Stonehenge culture, and if you could allow the misuse of the term Randall culture, because one person doesn't have a culture, but it's like the intertwinement of all that, and and I got to demonstrate this, that because of things that happened in my life, I was forced to go into more training as my only way of making a living because of that little intel, and I wasn't allowed to actually work for companies without disclosing to them that I was now a felon, but I got a special exemption for training. And because I said, well, I don't have access to their clues, so I'm not an insider. I'm only there for a week. And the judge granted that. Never mind the fact that pretty much every place I went to go train, I was on the inside, company network anyway. But at least I got the exemption. But that actually shifted Stonehenge then to be primarily about training, because I had to make a living and I had to figure out a way to scale so I get more people involved. And I also had to figure out a way to raise $270,000 to pay my fees and everything else. So it's sort of that's just one of many overlapping examples of things that that I've influenced Pearl's influenced me, and I'm happy to have been there for this history. I'm happy to have been here for this period of and even maybe I accidentally helped create the whole interactive web, in the sense that without the Perl books being out there, we would have had to use something more ugly like C or something to do CGI libraries, and I don't know if that would have caught on as much. So I kind of consider myself somewhat, at least one of the many dominoes that had to fall over to see www on the side of a bus today. And I'm very happy to have had that possibly unique role.
Awesome. Well, you and I have something in common when it comes to that whole lawyer thing. I've been had my run-in with the DOJ as well, so I know all about that.
Yep. Yeah, and I still can't go to Canada or Australia. I've been all over the world, 53 countries, but I can't go to Canada or Australia. Isn't that bizarre?
I ended up with a federal misdemeanor, which was I had a law.
Little here when you go to my Wikipedia page, it talks all about it. So, but I am legally allowed to say, though, if an employer asks me, I'm allowed to legally say, no, I've never been convicted of a crime in my life. I'm at that stage in the sequence.
Nice.
Yeah, mine doesn't show up anymore either. So. Yeah. It's awesome.
The trouble is governments don't believe that, and they say nope. So even the global entry thing that can get you back into the U.S. Quicker, I'm not allowed to apply for that because I'm a felon, according to the feds, even though it's been expunged. So crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
You never can tell with those guys.
Well, once they have their teeth in you, it's impossible to get out from under it without paying a boatload of cash, and it's crazy. I'll have to tell you.
Yeah, and what's fun, Australia 4 or 5 times before one of the times I went down, I had to clear, when I wanted to answer honestly, have you ever been convicted of a felony? I had to say yes. And then the next time I came there, I had all sorts of trouble, and I haven't been able to be approved ever since. So that's I tripped the wire, I guess, finally, and now I'm good.
Yeah. Wow.
All right.
Yes. But all right, Randall. Well, thanks for coming out today. And if you guys want to check out Randall's show, twit.tv/floss. Is that correct, Randall?
That'll suffice. Yes.
And
there's a longer version it redirects to, but that's the short one. Yes.
Right. And you can see there. That's Floss Weekly, free Linux, open source, all that related stuff. And they record that every Wednesday, earlier than we do. So Randall came in to join us today after that. So you guys can go to twit.tv and check out Randall. Also, check out his Wikipedia page. There's a link. There's a lot of information about the books and stuff that he's worked on. And or hit O'Reilly and just search his name as an author. You can find, if you want to learn something, Randall's books are probably the key source out there. So go out there and get them, and you can learn all about Perl. And next week, let's see here. I think we've got something coming up next week that I don't have in front of me, so watch for the announcements on that. And ClueCon is just around the corner. It is only a few weeks away, so if your ClueCon tickets ordered yet, go to ClueCon.com and register today. And we'll see you guys back here next week at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, and have a good week.